Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, we are back in game week mode. We love to be in game week mode around here because it makes our shows so much easier to plan. We just go, okay, well, Monday we're going to do this show, and Tuesday we're going to do this show. Friday on game weeks, Tony, we do game previews, and we love to not have to think about our editorial calendar. I don't want to say laziness. Let's just say we love the familiarity. We love to settle into a nice familiar editorial calendar when the season starts. That's actually, Tony, my favorite part of college football season. Not many people know that.
That's right. This show, we're folding a piece of paper, tri-folding it, putting it into an envelope, putting a stamp on that envelope, and mailing it in. That's what we
You said the quiet part out loud. That's not...
Sorry. No. It is Marshall Week. It's been Marshall Week all week for those of you who celebrate. Not a great team, but the best team that Ohio State has played to this point, probably. They're coming off of a loss 2 weeks ago to Virginia Tech, so they had the week off just like Ohio State did. That Virginia Tech game was 17-14 late into the third before Virginia Tech scored the final two touchdowns of that game to win 31-14. So there is some talent at Marshall. There is some ability to fight. Of course, that's kind of a rivalry game for Marshall in some senses, but they have some fight. They've got a week off. They've been preparing. They do have Western Michigan after this one, which is interesting as we know Ohio State played Western Michigan 2 weeks ago, but Ohio State something like a 39.5 point favorite the last time I looked in this one, which seems a lot against a program like Marshall, but when you start going over the scores in your head, you're like, yeah, I can probably see that. So I have not sent in my scores. We'll talk about it later. Tom, I know you have not set your score prediction in either. But for me, this is going to be just an interesting observation to see how quickly Ohio State picks up right where they left off, offensively and defensively. And we can start with the offense, which put up 680 some yards of total offense 2 weeks ago. I think you need to see another approaching 600 yards this week. And it's not something they've not been able to do that without like CJ Stroud or Dwayne Haskins or Justin Fields leading them. Now with Will Howard, I want to see, is this a 600 yard per game offense, especially with Marshall, who's not necessarily trying to run out the clock. They might try to take some swings. So let's see this offense just continue to put yards and points on the scoreboard and on the field.
And this is a game where Ohio State has such an incredible talent advantage. They talk about talent equated games. That is not one that we've talked, not a phrase we've heard this week inside the Woody. They talk about matchup games. That is not a phrase we have heard inside the Woody this week. This is one where Ohio State has an enormous talent advantage at every position around the field. And I think the thing that makes me think that this very well could be another game where they just come out and just stomp on Marshall like a bug is the way Ryan Day and the way Denzel Burke and a couple other guys talked about the practice this week. Ryan Day talked about the fact that Tuesday practice was really spirited. What was the exact word he used? Explosive or
Dynamite.
Something like that. Dynamite. There you go. Which is explosive. So I'm going to give myself partial credit there. To come out of a week off, you've seen teams come off of the week off and kind of come out a little sluggish and without a big marquee opponent on deck, it's easy to kind of sleepwalk through. It sounds like they were not sleepwalking through. And to come out of week one, have a, whatever it was, 52-6 win or whatever that was against Akron and lose a spot in the polls, I think that was something that probably they all pretend they don't pay attention to it. I'm sure it was made aware to them, much as Georgia lost a spot in the polls to Texas this week. I don't remember who Georgia's playing, but RIP to them this weekend is my sort of expectation there. I think that you've sort of seen the message, okay, leave no doubt. That's something Ryan Day has talked about. I think they've now seen that a little bit. I'm expecting them to come out, just take care of business. This is one where if Ohio State's not sleepwalking and Ohio State comes in focused and prepared, and I think all expectations are that they will, that the talent advantage should win out. It may not be 56-0 at halftime, but this is a game where Ohio State should be up by 30-something points in the second quarter and potentially just sort of coast to a win.
Do we see four quarterbacks again? Perhaps, maybe. I think they'd also like to, if they get 4 quarterbacks in there, they'd like to get Lincoln Keenholz an opportunity to throw the ball or at least make some reads, run around a little bit so that he's not just handing the ball off like he did against Western Michigan. But so many times, Tom, when we talk about, well, they're going to get 3 of these 4 quarterbacks, they want to get these guys in, it's like the starters are in for the first 3 quarters just because it's been a little bit clunky. I'm not expecting any clunkiness. You're adding Donovan Jackson into the mix, but he's been added in since last week during practice. So it's not like he's just coming off of out of the hospital bed right now and he's like, okay, I'm ready to play. They've worked him back in. They've had 2 weeks of him at practice, getting things right, getting all of the communication right. And being the veteran that he is, he can step in pretty easily. And as Josh Fryer was saying Wednesday night, the thing that Donovan Jackson adds is just the experience, and the communication is better for everybody. And that was interesting. One of the things Josh Fryer said he's been working on is his communication. And the more these offensive linemen are talking, the more information they're going to have. They can pass off. And the running game is going to continue to, I think, dominate in this one. And then as the defense has to focus more on that running game, the passing game is going to open up. And we saw so much of the RPO stuff work extremely well against Western Michigan. As we keep talking about, a little 7-yard pass from Jeremiah Smith on an RPO goes 70 yards. That's just going to be the nature of this offense, I feel like. And we'll see what happens against Iowa in a couple of weeks, how that changes the ease with which all of this Chip Kelly magic and things go on. But I think they're going to be able to do what they want in this one. And Will Howard getting back to what he was doing in that first game. And Tom, if I say this is going to be his first career 300-yard passing game at Ohio State, are you going to argue, or is there going to be like, well, is he going to play long enough to get that?
I think the second part of that is the bigger question. If he plays 4 quarters, he's going to throw for 300 yards. I think they're going to be able to run the ball enough that they're going to be able to move the ball, that they're not, that'll keep some of the passing yardage totals down a little bit for individual players. I look at the Virginia Tech game, and Virginia Tech's 2 top running backs ran for 5.5 and 5.8 yards per carry, 31 carries between them, 172 yards, and long of 25 and long of 20. So this is not skewed by one long run. This was just, they were able to consistently pick up 5, 6, 7 yards at a pop. And if Virginia Tech can do that, you would certainly expect Ohio State to be able to do that, because Virginia Tech did that without the threat of an incredible passing game. The passing was fine for them. They were 14-21 for 131 yards and a touchdown. That's fine. I have not spent a ton of time studying Virginia Tech this year, but I don't remember Jeremiah Smith being on their team. I don't remember Emeka Egbuka being on their team. I don't remember Carnell Tate being on their team. I don't remember Brandon Inniss being on their team. So
right.
This is one of those. This is going to be one of those pick your poison kind of games for Marshall. And even when they were when they didn't necessarily have the threat of the pass that they will this weekend, they weren't really able to contain the Virginia Tech running game, and the Ohio State running game should be better than that. So this feels like a week when Ohio State should be able to. This is not the worst defense in the world. This is not Kent State, but this is also a defense where Ohio State should be able to more or less just assert its will on both the ground and in the air.
You mentioned all of the Ohio State players that are not on the Virginia Tech squad. Former Ohio State tight end commit Benji Gosnell he had 2 catches for 14 yards against Marshall. Marshall did a good job stopping the quarterback run. Kyron Drones, who can run around, held to 13 yards on 15 attempts, did have a 10-yard run in there, rushing for a touchdown. So I don't know. Again, we don't expect to see much from Will Howard in the running game, but the capability is there. If the play is breaking down, he's going to go ahead and run. It just depends on how many run reads they give him. We saw him, they gave him one against Western Michigan, and he took it into the end zone. We'll see if that happens some more in this one. But I also think this is going to be the third game that we get to watch Jeremiah Smith. And I think that's always a fun topic, because as people are learning, you never quite know what he's going to do, but you want to see it. You want to tune in. And Carnell Tate has made some plays. Emeka Egbuka has made some plays. All 3 of those guys are number 1 receivers at a program like Ohio State. But the the opportunity to see what else Jeremiah Smith can do. And I'm still waiting, Tom. At some point, there's going to be a 3 for 22. Okay? At some point, he's going to be targeted 5 times, 3 catches, and not much production. It happens. But until it does, I'm just going to expect another 6 catches, 100 yards, 1 or 2 touchdowns, and moving the chains, and then also making, having guys chase him down and not catching him. And there's still, it's 2 games. There are still plenty of things that we've seen in practice that we haven't seen in the games. And there's still plenty of things that everybody else has seen in practice, meaning the coaches and players that we haven't seen in games. So there's still much more to come from him. We've seen a lot. We think we know everything that he can do, but we've only seen not even the tip of the iceberg, just the tip of the tip.
Yeah, it is the tip of the iceberg, it feels like, with him, because what we saw was in the spring of his first year, or the summer of his first true freshman season. I will remind everyone, you mentioned Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm just going to read through Marvin Harrison Jr.'s game log between the entire regular season in 2021 and his true freshman season. 0 catches, 0 catches, 0 catches. 1 catch, 9 yards. 0 catches, 0 catches. 2 catches, 34 yards. 0 catches. 2 catches, 25 yards. 0 catches, 0 catches, 0 catches. And then once Garrett Wilson and Kursalave were gone in the Rose Bowl, 6 catches, 71 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's Marvin Harrison Jr. And you see what Marvin Harrison Jr. is doing in the NFL right now. So for Jeremiah Smith to already have exceeded Marvin Harrison's totals in some ways, he's matched his touchdown total. I believe he's just about exceeded, or he's very close to exceeding, the catch and yardage totals as well. That tells you just how remarkable this is. He's 2 games into his career. He's about ready to pass Marvin Harrison Jr. in terms of true freshman season numbers. So that tells you how special he is. And I think this is one of these phrases that we're going to keep repeating over the year, because it feels like one of these things that's really kind of a tell in terms of the Ohio State offense. If a guy is covered one-on-one, he's open. And anyone who's covered one-on-one this weekend, he's absolutely open. You may have an underthrow, you may have a bad throw, you have a ball that Wynn catches or whatever. But those guys are viewed as open. You cannot double all 3 wide receivers unless you're going to have 5 guys in the box. And if you're going to have 5 guys in the box, I have bad news about what the numbers that Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson are probably going to put up. So you can only limit yourself. You can only limit the opponent to so many different things when you're outmanned, like Marshall's going to be this weekend. I wonder when we get to the point that you just see Jeremiah Smith bracketed more or less all the time, the way that Marvin Harrison was late in his Ohio State career. I don't think we're there yet. I think there's going to be a little bit more of, okay, let's see if this freshman's really as good as they say. It feels like that's coming at some point. And just to hit the Marvin Harrison game log, this is from last year, his 3rd season, 1 season before he goes to the NFL and scores a couple touchdowns in his 2nd game in the NFL. Against Indiana, 2 catches, 18 yards. Against Notre Dame, 3 catches, 32 yards. Against Rutgers, 4 catches, 25 yards. Against Minnesota, 3 catches, 30 yards. You can take one guy away like that if you really want to, and that will happen at some point, probably for Jeremiah Smith this year. I don't think it's going to happen this week, but at some point it is probably going to happen. But if it does, that just means that's probably a very big game for Carnell Tate, or for Travion Henderson, or for Quinshon Judkins, or for Emeka Egbuka, or someone else like that.
As you were talking there, I just went through and combined all of the first 2 games in their respective careers for Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Julian Fleming, Emeka Egbuka, Marvin Harrison, and Carnell Tate. What is that, 7 or 8 guys? And what I came up with is 8 catches for about 60-some yards. And Jeremiah Smith right now has 11 for 211, I believe. So that's a pretty impressive number when these are all, well, not all of them, but most of these freshmen. If you want to take Julian Fleming out, that's going to drop the numbers by like a catch and 5 yards or something like that. So a lot of first rounders and future first rounders in there, and he is outdistanced the entire group, which is incredibly impressive. And now that we have talked enough about Jeremiah Smith, we can name the show after him and not sell false advertising. Defensively for the Buckeyes, again, this is a group that is playing, the standard is the standard. The opponent doesn't matter. Have yet to statistically allow a team into the red zone, have yet to allow a touchdown. Was talking with Steve Hellwagon the other day, and he was saying that he can't find an instance of Ohio State defense not allowing a touchdown in 3 straight games since like the 70s. So I'll trust that research rather than do it myself, unless I want to prove him wrong. Like some people I want to prove wrong. Steve, I like Steve. I'm not going to go out of my way to prove him wrong. Kevin, that's another story. But the Ohio State defense, this will be an interesting game because Stone Earl, the Marshall quarterback, will run the ball. So I think this is a nice little added twist and kind of prepares them for Aiden Childs a bit next week, who will also throw the ball around and run it around. So it's just one other aspect for the Ohio State linebackers to be concerned with. And I know the secondary, as we talked to them yesterday, they're looking very much forward to having the ball thrown all over the place.
I think the thing that would be my biggest concern in terms of can Ohio State get an interception or two is Stone Earl last game, not 2 weeks ago, but last game against Virginia Tech, 13 for 36, 129 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, 36% completion percentage. There was a point at which Will Howard completed, 11 straight passes, something like that. There was a point at which Stone Earl incompleted 11 out of 12 passes against Virginia Tech. That is not great. You went from 3 for 5 for 22 yards to 4 for 17 for, it was for 32 yards, to 4 for 17 for 40 yards. Tony, anytime you can throw 17 passes and gain 40 yards, you have to do it. That's just one of those things you can't take. You can't risk, not taking advantage of a moment like that. The Marshall offense was better on the ground, not incredible. They averaged 5.7 yards per carry, but really it was skewed a lot by an AJ Turk 69-yard run. He had six rushes for 103 yards. You take that one out, they're 25 carries for 80 yards, and that's 3 and some change. They passed for about 3 and some change yards a pass. They ran for 3 and some change yards on the ground outside of that one long run. This just feels like one where I don't see where Marshall is going to be able to do anything consistently enough to sustain a drive. Maybe you hit one, you have a long touchdown play at some point, or you have a long play that gets you into field goal range or something like that. But it just doesn't feel like there's a path for Marshall to drive the football consistently against Ohio State. There's not a 10-play, 75-yard drive in there unless they come out of the gate with something real wacky and do it right to start the game. And if they get into the red zone, Tony, if that does happen, their field goal kicker is 1 for 3 on the season. Not great. There's just a lot here that you look at and you kind of go, I can see a lot of ways that doesn't go that great for Marshall.
Tom, normally you say never predict a shutout, but it sure sounds like you're leaning a particular way in this game. The 69-yard touchdown run was, half of their rushing yards. Their longest pass play was a amazing catch by receiver Christian Fitzpatrick. It was only 25 yards, but it was reminiscent of the Charles Woodson interception against Michigan State back in the day, where he just went up one-handed and brought it in. And so when you can do that and you're wearing gloves, pretty talented. So that's somebody to focus on. But yeah, the 3.6 yards per pass attempt is not going to get you anywhere. If they average if they average 2 yards per carry more than they throw in this one, I would be pretty shocked at that one. That they average 5.7 yards per rush against Marshall or against Virginia Tech and 3.6 per pass. I would expect that to be reversed in this one. Yeah, I don't see how Marshall moves the ball without a big play. And again, Ohio State right now, to this point, the only defense in the nation to, just looking real quick, they've not given up, was it one play of 20 yards this season? I think we determined. So it's not something that Ohio State's defense has been accustomed to. They've not yet given up a 30-yard play. They've only given up 10 or 8 10-yard plays. Of course, they've played one fewer game than a lot of programs, so that's why a lot of these numbers are low. But, they've given up 8 plays of 10 yards or more this season. The next team, Marshall, at 16. So it's going to be a slugfest, Tom.
Ohio State's the only team in the nation to not allow a team to get into the red zone, to not have a red zone possession during the course of a game. The next best behind them, a couple other teams with only 2 games as well, James Madison and Louisville, and then Texas with 3 games and 3 opponent red zone possessions. But this is not a great non-conference schedule. We've talked about that before. I'm sure we'll talk about that again at some point. Tony, I'm going to guess it's going to come up during the college football playoff conversation in a month or two that Ohio State did not play a great non-conference schedule, but you can only play the teams that are in front of you. And this is a not terrible non-conference schedule that was created in part by the fact that Washington changed conferences. So the Ohio State-Washington game that was supposed to be on the schedule got eliminated. That one, that would have been one that Ohio State got credit for trying, and sometimes you don't know what you're getting. But they're doing to the bad non-conference teams on the schedule exactly what you should do to the bad non-conference teams on the schedule. Have they played anyone yet? No. But they've done all the stuff that you could possibly ask them to. I don't think you can look at this and say this team is not as good as the preseason hype indicated, or this team is not going to be one of the best in the country. You can reasonably argue that they haven't played anyone good enough to test them, to know for sure that they're going to be one of the best teams in the country. That's fair. But it feels like they've kind of done what they needed to do. They have not played with their food. They have just kind of handled their business for the first couple of weeks.
So, Tom, let's talk about score predictions. I have not sent mine in yet. I
have. So if you'd like, I can go first, or you can go.
No. Go ahead, Tom. I've already written mine down in my head and on my notepad. So let's see what you are saying.
Well, the only thing that I have in here that we have not talked about already is the fact that Chad Pennington's son, Cole Pennington, is a backup quarterback. I believe a redshirt sophomore backup quarterback. So there you go. Now you feel old as well. I certainly do. Ohio State 48, Marshall 3.
Wow. So are you saying a missed extra point, or are you saying 2 field goals, getting stopped in the red zone twice, or are these, one at the end of the second quarter and then one at the end of the game because they couldn't get into the end zone in time? That's pretty classless to be kicking a field goal when you're already up 45-3 with a clock hitting 0, Tom. Pretty classless.
Feels like you have a 2-minute warning kind of drive, 2-minute drill right before halftime, and you get down and you try and kick a long one just because it's good experience. And then you have a drive at some point that get bogs down because of a holding penalty or something like that, and you kick a field goal there. But Tony, if it's 49-3 instead of 48-3, I wouldn't be shocked. I would feel pretty good about my prediction if it ended up 49-3 instead of 48-3.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree more, Tom. I'm going with 52-3 in this one. I think only one drive falls short, and it might just be the drive at the end of the first half when they just don't have enough time to get all the way, so they've got to kick a 62-yarder or something like that. Or, Tom, how about this? In honor of Mike Nugent kicking a 55-yarder 20 years ago to beat Marshall 24-21 at the buzzer, at some point in this game, much like Lee Corso pulling his team aside to take a photo of the scoreboard against Woody Hayes, Ohio State's going to get to the point where they have an opportunity to kick a 55-yard field goal, and first down, second down, doesn't matter. Ryan Day's going to be like, hey, we honor history around here. Let's go for 3.
I like the fact that I'm looking in the background at your TV right now, and the scoreboard just had Marshall 3. I don't know what the score is on the other side.
7.
Okay. Well, you and I both picked Marshall to have 3. Your TV is picking Marshall to have 3. So yeah, I'm guessing Ryan Day's new analytics consultants would not agree with kicking a 55-yard field goal on first down. I am not a professional analytics person. I sort of do that just sort of on an amateur basis. I have not yet I've not yet given up my amateur status there, but it feels like that's probably not going to be the most statistically sound thing. So I will fade your prediction of a first down 55-yard field goal. But otherwise, yeah, I think we're probably broadly in the same area.
So Ohio State pays a fee for this analytics service. If they were to do that, like kick a field goal on a second or third down, the analytics company would be like, take your money. We don't want to have any, if you're not going to listen to us, look, we don't even want to be associated with you if you're doing this. Punt on third down is one thing. All right. Don't do that either. In fact, don't even punt on fourth down because they're analytics. But no, that will do it. There you go. There are score predictions. Go ahead and hit the thumbs up before you go. We would appreciate that. And find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Join up. Now is a great time to become a member. As we've been telling you, first month, $4.99 right now, and on their flash sale. Ohio State, Marshall, what time is kickoff time? Is this a 12 p.m. on Fox? Big noon kickoff for everybody. You don't need cable. You don't need Peacock just yet. So enjoy the broadcast version of this one. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys later.